Right, so welcome to today, and in today's class we're going to be focusing on, as I said, stretching all the nooks and crannies of our body, and a few nooks and crannies that we actually forget about. So today you'll need 2 blocks and a bolster, and we're going to start today with the diaphragmatic breathing. And for this one, if you just come lying on your back with your legs bent, with your knees bent, and if you'd like, placing your hands around the navel area. And also I encourage you, if you just want to tuck in your tailbone, so tuck in the pelvis so your lower back is flat on the mat. And let's just start off here with, if you want to also place your right hand on your chest area and your left hand around the navel area. And let's just focus on the breathing, where our breathing is at the moment. As we've been perhaps in a hurry to start this class, we've been doing something active before we came in, maybe our breathing is still quite a lot up in the chest area. And so let's just take this time just to trigger that deeper breathing. So just being conscious of where your breath is. And noticing as your breath slows down, so your body starts to relax a little more. Now if you want to move your hands to your diaphragm, and I'll just accompany you on 4 rounds of the diaphragmatic breathing. So inhaling for 5 and exhaling for 5. So inhale, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Exhale, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Inhale, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Exhale, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Inhale, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Exhale, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Inhale, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Exhale, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now if you just like to do 2 more rounds at your own pace. And when you've finished, perhaps bring your hands by your sides and just noticing perhaps how your breathing is slower and deeper. Okay, so slowly bringing yourself up into a seated position. Okay, so I hope the diaphragmatic breathing has calmed you down. It certainly calmed me down. I was a little bit before the class today. So we're going to start with the opening up of the front part of the body. So we're going to start with the Sphinx, and I'm going to give you a few alternatives with the Sphinx. So come lying on your stomach. And as usual, we have the mildest version, either just lying with your head on the mat, perhaps leaning your chin on your fists or on the blocks, the shoulders, the elbows in front of your shoulders or under your shoulders. And then also, if you'd like to explore a little deeper, placing the elbows on a bolster. So wherever you are, just getting comfortable, remembering the focus of this pose is just this lovely stretch of the front area of the body. So, you know, the chest area, the abdomen. Relax your shoulders. Perhaps bring your shoulders back a little. And also relaxing the area around your lower back. So remember in yin, we relax the area that we are focusing on so we can get the maximum benefit of that pose. And remember, when we come into poses, we could notice some type of tension or tightness. Remember that yin is an uncomfortable practice. It's not restorative. It's functional. So functional is always looking for the reason for the pose rather than what the pose looks like. And that's why we talk about variable anatomy, because the premise is that everyone's body is different. And so each pose has so many different expressions, as many expressions as there are bodies. So if you ever go into a physical yin yoga class, you will always see how each pose looks different because there are so many different people. we have such a different background, different ages, different cultural backgrounds, different food, different climate, different injuries, different bone structure. We eat differently, and you yourself will notice that between every day also you can notice differences in your body. One day you'll feel that you have a lot of energy. Another day you have a different type of energy. Maybe you feel a little bit more stressed or uncomfortable. So even from day to day within our bodies, we have that difference. And so the advantage with yin is that we get to basically empower ourselves to learn about the basics of each pose, but then to find out and to explore what works for us best, for our unique body, with its different bone structure, different tissues, and of course even scar tissue from perhaps any injuries we've had. This all affects the way we approach a pose. So let's slowly move ourselves down onto the mat. Make a pillow with your hands. Lean your cheek on your hands or on the mat. Bring your big toes together and just relax, especially your shoulders and your arms. Now slowly turn the other way, facing the other way. Now slowly let's push ourselves into a seated position. And from here we're going to go to one of those nooks that I had mentioned before. One of the areas of the body that we don't very often stretch. So what I would suggest is when you, the way to approach this pose is simply by sitting, as I'm doing, just sitting on your heels, on your ankles, and just checking how that feels. It will depend, this depends quite a lot on the shape of your foot. So if it's comfortable for you to do this and it's comfortable for you to sit on your foot, then this shouldn't be too much of a problem. But there are some people the shape of their foot is like this, and so it's very difficult for them to sit on the front of their foot because of the shape of their bones. So for them, or perhaps that's your case, you would sit on a block. So this is the first thing to check. The first thing to check is, can you sit on your heels? Is it comfortable? If it isn't comfortable, then sit on a block. If it is comfortable for you, the pose we're going to do now is called the ankle stretch. And so the focus of this is actually to stretch the front part of your ankle. And the way we do this is, the easiest way is to take a bolster or a block and place it underneath your knees. So you're raising it up slightly. And then just check in with the feeling that you have in the front of your ankles. We're not going to be here a long time because it's the first time we've done this. So we're going to start like this. The position of your feet depends on you, so you can have them further apart or closer together. Just experiment a little with that to see which is comfortable for you. And then if you don't feel anything, for example, in this position, I don't feel much of a stretch, you could come back a little bit more. So you could lift up like this as well. So that's another option. But wherever you are, just check in with your ankles and see. The idea is that you feel a stretch, but obviously not pain. We're not looking for pain. Okay, so we're going to start now just for 3 minutes. And just find where you feel that nice stretch. And remember, this is a pose which is not done very often. We'll mention related poses which are done a little more often. But it's great to do a stretch in a part of the body that we don't often stretch. Because if you think of a part of your body which is only moved in a specific direction and it is never moved in the other direction, there's something missing. So we need to, every now and then stretch that other part of the body just to keep a little bit of a balance. So wherever you are, just noticing, if you notice a little bit of tenderness, just try to relax into that area, and quite often that goes away. Of course, if the tenderness increases to pain, then obviously I would suggest that you move to a less aggressive exploration of this pose, or simply move out of it. And we have 1 minute to go. If you like, you can also bring your hands behind you if you want a different type of stretch. Whatever works for you. And of course, because this is a new pose, or this is a pose we don't do very often, it's a time of exploration. So I always suggest, when we have a pose we don't do often, or perhaps it's a pose that's new for you, then always go gently, because the tendency of the body is to tense up when it's something new. Okay, and slowly coming down. Move the bolster away. I hope your ankle survived. And come lying on your back, just so we can relax those ankles. And I'm sure we can all feel quite a intense stretch in that area, the ankle area. So just noticing this rebound effect on the front of the ankle. Okay, so let's move now to a seated position. And from here, we're going to be working the sides of the hips. And so from here, we have, as usual, we have two options. So if it's not very comfortable for you to sit as I'm sitting, then please sit on a bolster, so raising your pelvis a little. And from here, we have two options for your feet. So option one would be, I'm just going to come off the bolster, it's easier to show you. Option one is what we call the shoelace, what we call the square. So here, my right foot is on top of my left knee. If you are sitting like this and you notice that your knee is up like this, this means that you actually need to be elevated, right? So then your knees are further down. Okay, if you still notice that this is very uncomfortable for your knee, especially we must always look after the knee, the joint, then place your right foot in front of your left knee. So you see what I've done? I've gone from here, which is the square, to here, placing that right foot in front of the left. Okay, and then from here, whichever position of your feet is comfortable for you, you're going to move forward. And often what I like to do here is I can either have a bolster, I can place cushions or blocks in front of me, and I'm going to come down over those legs. And here what I'm looking for is a feeling of a stretch in the right hip, so the outside of the right hip and down to the knee. You could feel it in the other side, but it could possibly feel more on the foot that's in the front. So we're going to move forward and we're going to be here for 5 minutes. So once again, always when we come into these poses, we come in slowly, not aggressively. If we come in aggressively, we'll probably have to come out of the pose after a few minutes. We won't be able to maintain it. So it's one of the principles of yin, which is to look for what they call the edge. So it's a bit of a balancing act. So looking for where you need to be to feel a stretch, but which is not uncomfortable or painful. And then as we feel our body relaxing, as we feel stiffness and tension melting away, we may be able to move a little deeper into this pose. But remember, it always depends on your body, because according to your body structure, the structure of your bones, you may be able to come forward, or you may never be able to come forward because of the structure of your bones. But that doesn't matter. The most important thing, even if you are just sitting up and you are coming forward ever so slightly, if you feel a stretch in your side right hip, then that is what I mentioned, the function of the pose. The function is to feel that stretch. And that's the most important thing. So once you've found that optimal stretch for you, and then just check in with your breath and notice the quality of your breath. The quality of our breath affects not just the way we move, but the way we act. And so the joy of yin is that we get the time to focus on a type of a oasis of stillness, inner meditation. If we find that the mind is wandering, we can just bring it back to the breath. Even if it means simply counting our breaths. So slowly push yourself up. Move blocks to the side and just stretch your legs out in front of you. We're just going to relax here. Relax the knees. Relax the hips. Just noticing particularly the hips. How does that feel? Do you have a feeling of warmth around that? Do you feel that stretch around that right hip? And now let's just move the feet from side to side like a windscreen wiper, just to get a bit of action in there. And sitting up again, if you need to sit on a bolster, sit up on a bolster. Otherwise, we're going to place now the left foot on top of the right knee or in front of the right knee. Place the bolster in front of you if you need a bolster and some blocks. And once again, coming forward for 5 minutes. And so, of course, in this pose, as I mentioned before, on this side now you'll be feeling a stretch along the outer left hip, so the glute muscles of your outer left hip, and then possibly even right down to your knee. Remember, here we're always rounding the back, so if you are the person that doesn't come forward very much, you could simply be here, allow your head to hang, and just noticing that nice stretch in the outer hip. Otherwise, you could come forward, hands in front of you, leaning on your hands, rounding the back. Let's just come to a position where we are effectively hanging out. So here we could also just focus on the sensations in that area that we are stretching. Perhaps it's more intense or less intense. I'm still amazed by how things change in my body. So one day, one side will have more tension or stiffness, and perhaps the other day it will change. It depends on so many factors. Perhaps you were walking and you were favoring one leg over the other one. Perhaps you moved in a certain way when you picked something up. All these subtle things affect how we notice the stretching when we are in yin. So it's really a great way to get in touch with our body. To build awareness of it. Okay, so let's bring ourselves upwards. And from here, something different. So just spread your legs out in front of you, your feet out in front of you with your feet on the mat. And we're just going to allow the legs to fall from side to side. This is the windscreen wipers, the windshield wipers that we do, just to get any tension that might have accumulated in the hips while we were doing this pose. Okay. Right, so we've got some other nooks and crannies coming up, some more. This time we're going to be stretching this part of the body. So the pectoral muscles, so opening up the front of the chest. And for here, this pose is basically up to you to find where you want to get the stretch. So I will show it to you from different angles so you can see, you know, the different angles of the pose. We have done this one a few times before. So come onto your left hip. So we're going to start with the left hip. And come down onto your shoulders, and from here stretch your right arm out behind you at a 90-degree angle. So coming like this, and then I bend your left leg, and the right leg is bent. This is what I find comfortable. You could find something else comfortable. I like to have a block underneath my head, because otherwise the head is hanging and it can be quite uncomfortable. I'm going to show you from the other side just so you can see what it looks like. And there are other alternatives as well. So let me just show you. So I come lying. You see my hand is out like that, bending the leg. And there's some people that even bring their hands like this, so you get even more of a stretch. But you could just leave your hand like this, bend like that. Okay, so now that you've discovered what is accessible for you, you know you can always adapt it. So if you feel that it's too much for you, you can just adapt how far you bring your chest back. And of course, using the block, I do suggest, otherwise it can be quite intense for the head. So it depends on you. So getting yourself comfortable, placing the hand where it feels comfortable. So the right arm stretched out behind you at a 90-degree angle. And from here you should feel that stretch across the pectoral muscles, the chest muscles in front of you. Of course, you don't need to be on a block. You don't need to rest your head on a block. But for some people, it's too much of a stretch to allow the head to hang down. If you feel that's enough stretch, just stay there. And notice it is quite intense. So make sure it is not too intense. If it's too intense, simply bring your chest a little forward. So you're not coming totally out of the pose, but it's not too extreme for your body. So this pose is the open wings. And of course, if you have been hunched over computer today, you may notice quite a lot of tension, quite a lot of stiffness, tightness. It might be quite uncomfortable. Because essentially when we are hunching, we are suppressing those muscles. We are pushing down on these exact muscles that we are stretching at the moment. So the key thing is just to look for the relaxation in that area. Try to relax it as much as possible. So we have 1 minute to go. And just bring your attention to the area you stretched. Perhaps noticing the difference in the area from when you started to now. Now slowly, moving yourself out of this position, and we're just going to come lying on your back. Just so we can just release any of those intense sensations, because it is quite a stretch. So just noticing the warmth you could be feeling around the chest area. And now let's move to the other side. So if you need the block, bringing the block over to the other side. And this time on your right hip. And bring yourself down to a comfortable position, leaning onto the block. If you need it, otherwise just hanging out. Once again, 5 minutes here. And any tension or tightness, just breathing into it. So when we are in these poses, especially when we are in challenging poses, it is an interesting time just to focus on, or perhaps notice our reaction to discomfort. Of course, when I say discomfort, I don't mean pain, but if our default reaction is to move away from discomfort, then it might be something to consider. Not as a judgment, but just to notice this. But as I mentioned earlier in the class, it is a fine line. Yin is not about being a masochist. It's not a competition. It's not to see who can stay the longest in the most uncomfortable position. But as we need to feel a slight discomfort in the position, to get the benefit of the pose, it's important just to notice our reactions, and some of it, of course, comes from fear. Fear of injuring this wonderful body that we have. Which is a mystery in many, many aspects, and still to scientific community. But by doing yin, we do get quite an intimate glimpse into different aspects of our body that perhaps we wouldn't get in other types of physical activity. So slowly come out of this pose, and once again come lying on your back. Now let's move into a seated position, and from here we're going to work on a part of the body we haven't really worked on, and that is the legs. So we're going to do a wide-legged straddle. So if you need to, of course, sitting on a bolster to elevate your pelvis, to elevate your hips. And from here, just simply moving forward as is accessible to you. Remember, place blocks underneath your thighs, basically because you will feel, you should be feeling a stretch in the hamstrings, or you could feel a stretch along the glute muscles. And when you are doing this, if you have really tight hamstrings and you place the blocks underneath, you are relaxing the bones. And once we have the bones relaxed, then we can get more of a stretch in the hamstrings. That's why I always suggest, don't see the supports as something that is for someone that is a beginner. It's got nothing to do with that. This is all to do with the variable anatomy, where we are looking at how we can adapt the pose for our unique body. And one of the main things that we do is using supports. And supports are not just for you as a beginner, or for you because of, for example, you have tightness in your hamstrings. It could also be used to intensify a pose. So if you are in a certain pose and you want to get more of a stretch, we can also use supports. So it's really important to resist that prejudice that we all have with supports, that supports are there when you aren't good enough. Yeah, supports in yin are part of the practice, and the main focus is that we can get the benefit of that pose. So we get the benefit of the pose either by going around a part of our body which is, should we say, obstructing that we get into that pose, or we use the support to deepen our entrance into that pose. So we're going to hang out here just for 3 more minutes. And here, my feet are relaxed. My feet are not flexed. And depending on the person, you could feel a nice stretch in the backs of your thighs, in your hamstrings, or in the groin muscles, in the adductor muscles. The back is rounded, the head hanging. Rest your head on your hands, or simply allow your head to hang. Slowly moving your body upwards. And let's just come lying on your back, just so we can relax here. And just noticing the sensations in the backs of your legs. And now we're going to end with a nice twist, a twist of your choice. So from the lying on your backs, if you just reach your block, if you need a block. And here will be two alternatives. So option one, as usual, always alternative one, bringing your knees towards your chest and allowing the knees to fall to one side. Remember, the higher up your knees, the more the twist will be in your upper back. The lower down, the more the twist will be felt in your lumbar spine. So that's option one. And option two is twisted roots. So cross your right knee, your right leg over your left and hook that right foot under your left, if that's accessible for you. Bring those knees towards your chest and then slightly shift your hips towards the right before you come down. And then we're just going to be here just for 3 minutes, just to get some nice, release some of that tension, any tension that you might have felt in the spine. You can turn your head to face the opposite direction of your knees. And here we are in the quintessential Stretch to release tension in the spine and so many other places. So we have stretching across the shoulders. We are twisting and compressing the internal organs. Remember, twisting always helps with digestion. And then, of course, turning your neck. It's a nice stretch for your neck. Relax your shoulders, relax your arms. Now slowly bring your knees up and hug your knees to your chest, or open your knees, and in both positions just keeping your lower back imprinted on the mat, just to release any lower back tension. Then bring your feet down to the mat, and now crossing your left leg over the right, curling your left ankle if you're doing the twisted roots. Otherwise, just simply bring your knees towards your chest and allow them to fall to one side. So if you're doing the twisted roots, twisting round, shifting your hips slightly to the left before you allow the arms to come down to the side. And relaxing in this position. We'll be here for 3 minutes. And sometimes when we come into this position, you'll notice the shoulder furthest away from your hip, from your knees. It may lift off the ground, but often as the body relaxes, the shoulder will come down, back down to the ground, to the mat. If it doesn't and it feels uncomfortable, then place a blanket underneath. So it would be underneath your left shoulder. And also if it feels uncomfortable for your knees, then place a block underneath. Otherwise, enjoying the stretch in so many different parts of our body. Bring your knees up. And once again, bring your knees towards your chest. If you want to roll slowly from side to side. And now is the time for relaxation. So if you'd like to turn off the light or grab a blanket or grab a pillow, do so now. And we'll get into relaxation mode. So just get yourself comfortable. Perhaps spend a few minutes, a few seconds shifting your body around. And as we've been exploring so many different nooks and crannies in the body, let's just start with the toes. So if you just wiggle your toes a little bit, squeeze them, point, and relax. Just bring your attention to the tops of your feet where you've been stretching in the ankle stretch. Move your awareness up the leg to the knees. And then notice different parts of your body, different parts of your leg. So the hamstrings or the groin muscles we've been stretching, and then the sides of the leg. Up the sides of the legs to the hips. And feel your pelvis relaxing and opening. Notice the movement of your abdomen. The movement of your ribs as you breathe in and out. And bring your awareness up to the chest, particularly those muscles that we were stretching along the chest. And then move your attention down the front of your arms to the elbows, to the wrists and the ankles. And the fingers. Move your fingers a little, make a fist, and then relax. And then finally check in with your neck. And your head. Just allow the time remaining for your mind to be at rest. Your body to be calm. Your breath slow. Now let's start waking up the body, moving fingers and toes, making movements with the wrists and the ankles. And then bring your legs together, your arms above your head. Give yourself a nice stretch. And bring the arms down. Bend your legs and bring yourself to a comfortable seated position. So, thank you, Susan, for joining me. I see Maria disappeared. I'm not sure if it was maybe sometimes the connection on the islands is not very stable, so I don't know what happened there. I'm sure I'll find out later.